Hi, I'm Doris Purchase, and welcome to Beyond the Frame, a podcast created just for you by Propeller Art Gallery, artists empowering artists in Toronto. Together, we'll take a deep dive into the hearts and minds of working visual artists today and their practice. In each episode, you will hear illuminating and intimate explorations of all things art, and you'll hear it in the artist's own voice. We'll talk process, inspiration, challenges, and much more. Everything you've ever wanted to know about art making or about the artists themselves happens right here. So let's sit back and have a listen, shall we? Today we welcome Susan Ruptash. Which ism is it? Under which ism would you classify your work?
My work is based a lot on exploration and experimentation. So I would say that my work falls into aspects of materiality, but it's not really materiality. My work is highly process-driven, so it always starts with the materials. Where I'm headed shifts as I'm working. I allow the materials and what's happening in the middle of the process to guide me as to where things are going to go. So I start with at least a rough idea, of course, about where it's headed, and sometimes the finished work is what I had imagined it would be, but I find that my best works end up being quite different than the direction I'd been heading in.
Who's your muse? Influencers, educators, mentors? Who has greatly inspired you?
A great deal of my inspiration comes from the heritage washi makers of Japan. I admire so much their reverence for the work that they're doing, their reverence for the materials that go into this incredible washi that they make, the patience, generation-long patience of the people who work away at this incredible craft and the dedication that they and their families have to making this incredible washi. Nancy Jacoby of the Japanese Paper Place here in Toronto is a muse to so many people who work in washi, and she has been an incredible inspiration, educator, cheerleader, so she has to be mentioned. I also take inspiration from a lot of the contemporary paper makers of today, and Helen Hebert in the U.S. Is both an incredible paper maker and a paper artist, and I have both learned from her and continue to be inspired from her on a frequent basis. I'm really lucky to be a member of an artist collective at Propeller Art Gallery called Washi Sisters, and we came together to plan a group show, but it has become so much more than that. So these are my current muses, mentors, educators, influencers. I look forward to connecting with them on so many levels, learn so much from them, and my own work has evolved in a much better fashion through my connection with them. I also like to research traditional techniques for functionally altering washi. So these are techniques that had different uses in the past that were more industrial almost or functional. And I don't try to technically replicate these processes because some of them are quite precise and need like almost a lifetime of training. But I use them in unintended ways into my work, and I find that this I just enjoy learning about these processes, and I enjoy helping them live on in a new way.
Materials matter. What are your chosen favorite tools and preferred medium?
My medium is heritage, handmade, Japanese washi. All of the work that I'm currently doing involves this in some way. I will occasionally use some other materials, but I always try to stick to very natural materials and very minimal interventions. The tools, the primary tool I use and the most important tool is actually water, both because high quality, clean, cool water is a vital component of making great washi. So the notion of water is embedded in the washi that I work with. But I also use water to tear the paper. A lot of my work involves tearing paper to express the fibers and the inner structure of the paper, and I use water to tear it in a certain way. So that's the first tool that came to mind when I think of my work. I'm currently working with two of the traditional methods that I mentioned earlier. One of them is called konyaku. It's a starch made from the root of a plant named the voodoo lily. And who wouldn't want to work with something called voodoo lily? And this starch was traditionally used to add strength and texture to washi for functional uses. And I use it now to alter the texture of the paper and enable crumpling. Also use it for laminating paper and things like that. So it's a lovely natural product to use. And the other one that I'm currently really enjoying is called kakishibu. It's a traditional tannin made from fermented unripe persimmons. And it dyes the paper and and waterproofs it as well. Again, it's used traditionally, adds a beautiful sheen to the paper. The other thing I do is incorporate tricks and techniques that I've learned over the years from different arts and crafts. So, in particular, bookbinding. So, working with papers and pastes and conservators. There's a lot that I've learned in terms of techniques that I apply now to the work that I do. Printmaking, also weaving and spinning. I reach out and learn just a little bit about these things and then bring them back to my work.
Slump Secrets. What methods do you employ to get yourself out of a slump?
Well, this is the beauty of working in a way that values exploration and experimentation. I have the exact opposite problem. When I'm working on a piece, midway through, I'll have 10 ideas for slight modifications. Okay, if I did it this way, what would happen? If I did it that way, what would happen? So before I'm even finished that piece, I have 10 potential offshoots of that piece that I could happily continue working on. And then along the way, I'll have even more ideas for completely new pieces. So the work inspires me for the next piece. That's how I come up with my inspiration for the next piece, is simply to work on a piece, and I will end up with way more ideas than I could ever come up with. So I finally got smart enough to stop for a second and write them down, because I would come back later and try and remember these ideas that I'd have, but I do not suffer from slump.
In the beginning. So tell me a bit about your process. Do you have a bag of tricks, lucky talismans, or habits? Where do you start? And more importantly, when do you stop?
So for me, it all starts with the washi. The qualities of the particular paper I am using. Is it thick or thin? What's the color of it? Even the natural colored washis, there's an incredible range of subtle tones depending on exactly what was used to make that paper. How translucent is the paper? Translucency is at the core of a lot of my current work. I'm interested in layering, and I've noticed more and more often, inadvertently, my pieces end up being two-sided. At the end, either side can be viewed, and I almost feel that I'm not qualified to be the judge of which side is the front and which is the back. How long are the fibers? The fibers in washi paper are long, and that's what makes it so strong, even though it's so translucent and so light. So when I'm working with a new paper, I'll start by tearing it to see how the fibers react. What kind of sizing does the paper have? That impacts how it will react to tannins or dyes or other things. Even the size of the paper or the proportions of the paper. I've recently been working with some sheets that are naturally made in a square format, and that leads me in one direction versus other papers that are made in a long banner-like shape, and that will lead me in a different direction. I like to work with full sheets more and more and take direction from the original proportions of the sheet. There's also just the surface of the washi. Heritage washi is dried often on a wooden board or a steel sheet. So one side of it is usually smoother than the other. One is quite smooth and the other is a little soft and puffy. And there may be marks in the paper from the board, even a minor wood grain from where the paper was dried, or marks from other parts of the process. So considering that surface and how I'm going to incorporate that. So by nature of being handmade and made with natural materials, each sheet of washi is full of variations. And so I hope that my finished work expresses the qualities of the particular washi paper as well as celebrating the variations within it. The other amazing thing with washi is when you introduce light in some format. So either using the translucency to hang it in a window, but what's really fun is making different kinds of lighting fixtures using the washi, because when you put soft lighting from within it, it really starts to highlight the inner structure, the inner beauty, and the fibers of the washi.
Calling all emo. What do you wish people to think or feel when they contemplate your work?
I hope that people look at the washi and start to experience some of the joy and wonder that I feel when I'm working with washi, to see deeper into it, to see the inner beauty of this washi, to appreciate its strength, its different qualities, and really start to appreciate it as this incredible product. I will say mostly I like to step aside from the work a little bit and let the washi and the work do the talking.
The struggle is real. Talk to me about your biggest challenges as an artist. What methods do you use to overcome these challenges?
I mentioned earlier how I have lots of ideas, how I'm inquisitive, experimental, and so I would say one of my challenges is staying focused on the piece I'm doing, and perhaps on if I'm working on a series, to try and stay focused and make sure I'm giving it the full attention it needs before I move on to something else. I've more recently gotten better at working in a more coherent series rather than just kind of piecemeal working on different things. And I found that this has really informed my work and made me think deeper into the particular pieces I'm working on. So I think the method I've used is trying to be careful with myself about not starting too many new pieces without finishing what I've already got, because I do have a tendency to do that. Even the process that I use sometimes needs time for drawing or setting. So there is some functional reason for working on multiple pieces, but it can get out of hand if I let it. So I would say just trying to make sure that I finish what I can before I move on too much.
Picture perfect. In your opinion, what constitutes a perfect piece of art? And what qualities in your own work would you signify as a perfect work? For example, perfect composition, confident brushstrokes illustrating a concept, or something else altogether.
I think the most important revelation in my development as an artist was letting go of perfection. I like to control things. I like things very organized. I love precision. But the work that I do with washi, with the natural variations and the process that I'm doing, I learned, the washi taught me that I had to let go of perfection and let it help me along the way. And this has made the world of difference in my work. One of the things I've noticed is that my career as an architect, and in fact my natural tendencies that led me into architecture, continue to influence my work as an artist. My interest in structure, my love of organization, and these kinds of tendencies, I think, continue to influence my work.
Art Speak. How do you feel about titling, discussing, and explaining your work?
Well, I do like talking about my work. A lot of my work has embedded meaning. For instance, some of the work I'm working on now, I take a full sheet of washi, I take it apart, and then I reassemble it. And I ensure that the pieces and the strips go back in the correct order, the original order of the original sheet, even though no one looking at the piece would ever notice that. So I get a kind of a joy out of embedding meaning like that, and I believe it adds, in a kind of odd way, it adds to the piece as well. Every time I talk about my work, I learn something about myself as an artist, and I learn something about my work, and especially when people ask me questions. And so that's one of the reasons I enjoy talking about it, is that I always learn something from it. I find it's important to identify and acknowledge the particular washi paper I'm using in my work. This is, in a way, I feel a kind of long-distance, time-separated collaboration with the original washi makers in this way. I feel a responsibility to them to use the washi well. The titles of my work usually come to me while the piece is developing. They may refer to a quality of the work or an inspiration or what it reminds me of, but it just sort of comes to me and I don't fuss about it I know it pops up and I know that's the title.
Heavy metal or classical? What do you listen to while you work? Or is silence your thing?
When I'm working, I listen to the paper. When I'm wet tearing, which is something I do frequently, I apply a bead of water to the paper. You have to wait, not too long, not too short, for it to soften just enough before you tear it. And you can hear when it's ready. If you start too soon, it's crisp. It's kind of, and the paper's kind of resisting, and that's too soon. When it's ready, it's a soft kind of when you tear it. And so it's part of me knowing how to proceed with the work is listening to it. My work also involves crumpling and rubbing, and I love the sound of the crumpling of the paper. Even if I'm brushing the tannin on, I can hear from the brush stroke when it's wet enough. Is the brush too wet or too dry? I'm doing a lot of paper weaving, and I can hear when an edge catches that I'm trying to weave under a piece, and then I pull it back and pull in a bit. So I just love the sounds of the work that I'm doing, so that's what I listen to.
Why for art, thou? Why do you make art?
I get a huge satisfaction from making things. It's also for me an incredible privilege to hang out with other artists. The back and forth sharing of ideas and techniques and the inspiration I have found incredibly rewarding. As I talked about earlier, I enjoy the discussions about my work. I enjoy thinking about it, and I enjoy talking about it. I love experimentation and exploration, and the art has given me that outlet to do that. Art has taught me so much, and one of the big ones is the power of letting go. I do try to control things a lot. I mentioned already I like precision and organization, but there are many aspects of the work that I cannot fully control. And my results are so much better when I step aside and let the materials take me down where they want to go. This makes my art better, and it's made me a better person.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Frame, a PAG podcast. To hear more episodes and to view the artist's works, please visit www.propellerartgallery.ca. Hosted by Doris Purchase, produced by Tracy Thomson, and recorded at the Orange Lounge Studio in Toronto. Also, the Propeller Art Gallery recognizes the presence of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Huron-Wendat nations. We acknowledge we are hosted on land governed by Treaty 13, the Toronto Purchase, the Two-Row Wampum Treaty, and the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. We are committed to peaceably sharing and caring for the resources around the Great Lakes and operating the gallery on the principles of inclusiveness as we continue to exhibit art created by artists from all over the world. Thank you for listening.